Thanksgiving season. We'll talk about that a moment this morning and talk about the initiators, or the instigators, might be a better word. The initiators, instigators of ingratitude. Ingratitude. Psalm 92 is a beautiful psalm. And follow along as I read it this morning for us, and let's give attention to what the psalmist says. It is good to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises to your name, O Most High, to declare your steadfast love in the morning, your faithfulness by night, to the music of the lute and the harp, to the melody of the lyre. For you, O Lord, have made me glad by your work. At the works of your hands I sing for joy. How great are your works, O Lord! Your thoughts are very deep. The stupid man cannot know. The fool cannot understand this, that though the wicked sprout like grass, and all evildoers flourish, they are doomed to destruction forever. But you, O Lord, are on high forever. For behold your enemies, O Lord, for behold your enemies shall perish. All evildoers shall be scattered. But you have exalted my horn like that of the wild ox. You've poured over me fresh oil. My eyes have seen the downfall of my enemies. My ears have heard the doom of my evil assailants. The righteous flourish like the palm tree and grow like a cedar in Lebanon. They are planted in the house of the Lord. They flourish in the courts of our God. They still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green, to declare that the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him. Now, we could dismiss right now having heard a sermon. What a beautiful text. Sermon in and of itself. Now, we're not going to do that, but what a beautiful, poetical, lyrical, content-laden chapter the psalmist writes, and covers so many things about our great God, his sovereignty, his creation, the defeat of his enemies, his protection and security of his children. What a glorious text to share around this time and all throughout the year. Thanksgiving is upon us, and our first Thanksgiving stretches way, way, way back, even before our nation was a nation. And you know the story. Hopefully you were taught it in school. The Pilgrims landed. About 100 of them sailed the Mayflower and landed here at Plymouth Rock, and simply for the privilege of seeking religious freedom. Now think about that. They were so committed to, concerned about, invested in, connected to, in sync with their Christian faith, that they were willing to leave everything they knew and come to a new place full of all kinds of dangers, just so they could worship in freedom. Oh, the cost they gave. The price was high. And landing here in Plymouth Harbor, Massachusetts on December 16th, 1620, they faced brutal conditions. Not sure whoever planned that trip planned it well, landing here in winter. I don't know about that, but they did, especially in that location. And they found themselves woefully unprepared for what they were to meet. In fact, the first year, over half of them died. They eventually signed the Mayflower Compact that established their Christian faith and established a community in government in and of itself. They sent out explorers to explore and discover. The originals settled in what was to become later Cape Cod, and they built a town there. In 1621, they celebrated what we now call a Thanksgiving dinner together. Edward Winslow was one of the participants in that supper, and his quote is this. He says, "Our harvest being gotten in, our governor sent 4 men on fowling, that so we might after a special manner rejoice together after we gathered the fruit of our labors. And although it be not always so plentiful as it was at this time with us, yet by the good hand of God we are so far from want." By the good hand of God, we are still so far from being in want. And that Thanksgiving celebration continued over time, and throughout the next several decades, presidents would give a temporary proclamation calling citizens to Thanksgiving. And then in the middle of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln in 1863, in the midst of all the atrocity of a civil war, established the perpetual national holiday that we now call Thanksgiving Day. Abraham Lincoln said, "I do therefore invite my fellow citizens in every part of the U.S. and also those who are at sea and those who are sojourning in foreign lands to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of thanksgiving and praise of our beneficent Father who dwells in the heavens." And thus it has been. Interestingly, Thanksgiving began in the midst of hardship with the Pilgrims, in the midst of being in a newfound land and facing dangers, and when life wasn't easy, when it was difficult. Life, you and I have no clue what they endured. And in the middle of all of that, they chose to be thankful. It began in hardship. Lincoln establishes it in the middle of national turmoil. Thanksgiving. It's easy to be thankful, perhaps, when things are great and good. But looking back on the history of this holiday, it began in difficult times, yet they were thankful. It was established governmentally in difficult times, yet there was gratitude and thanksgiving. You would think adversity and hardship and sorrow and difficulty would spawn ingratitude. But it didn't with our forefathers. It spawned gratitude and thankfulness to their God. Interesting, ironic, if you will. Now, we could talk all day about how ungrateful some people are. We know. We could talk about all day. Seems like some people, the more you do for them, the less grateful they are. The more you handle. We can talk about all. We know all that. We could talk about all day, even among good Christian folk like us, how little we say thank you for things. I've said this before. I've said this 21 years here, and it is indicative of our society in general. I think there's some phrases that some people just have the hardest time saying. One of those phrases is, "I was wrong." If I had a bookie, and I don't, and if I were a betting man, and I'm not, I would call my bookie and bet. There are some people in this room this morning who have never uttered those 3 words. I am wrong. I guarantee you. There's somebody in who has never said, I'm wrong. It's just a phrase we don't use. I could camp there a while I want. There's another phrase. There's some people just never said in their lives to anybody. It's thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If I let you over in traffic and you don't give me a little wave, I'm going to ram your car. Say thank you. Someone opens a door for you, say thank you. If your server refills your tea glass, tell her thank you or him thank you. Amen? Thank you. If somebody gives you a compliment, say thank you. If somebody does something for you, say thank you. It's kind of a lost art in the world in which we live. And we talk about that all day. But there are maybe some instigators or initiators of ingratitude. Quickly, just 2 or 3 we might want to be aware of. You may be guilty of some. I may be guilty of some. We'll see. You can make that adjustment or application however you feel, however the Spirit leads you. But there are some things that can prompt some ingratitude in us. One is prosperity. Prosperity. Again, the irony here, the irony. You would think that being blessed and favored and being prosperous and all would create in any person a sense of gratitude or a sense of thanksgiving. But it's interesting, even in the Scriptures, the Bible, God had a word to say about this. Interesting. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 17 and 18. Moses here is reminding Israel of all that God has done for them. And you can read that context. He's reminding them all the good things God has done for them as a nation and as a people. But he gives them this warning about it. They have prospered, brought out of Egypt. They came out of Egypt with the spoils of Egypt. Egyptians gave them their money on their way out. They were rich when they left Egypt. God had given them the promises he had given to Abraham of riches. And they had that. I mean, come on, folks. They were able to make a golden calf. Where do you think all that gold came from? Egypt. That had been given to them. He had blessed them, prospered them. And Moses reminds them of all that. But in the middle of that, he gives us warning. He's talking about the continued upcoming prosperity that they will experience in Canaan. He says, God's blessed you now, and when you get to the promised land, he's going to even bless you more. But he gives us warning. Moses says, beware, lest you say in your heart, quote, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your fathers as it is this day. Moses was reminding the people, with all this that we have, all this that we enjoy, don't you ever for 1 minute think it came from your hand. Don't you a minute think you worked for it. Don't you think for a minute that God is not the source of all of this. And he gives us this warning, gives them this warning. And I'll repeat it. Never say, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. No, you remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth. Every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father. One of the great confessions of the historic Christian church is the Heidelberg Confession. And in it, it's structured in questions. And question 28 of the Heidelberg Confession asks, what advantage is it to us to know that God has created and by his providence does still uphold all things? And then the answers are given. You see, sidebar, these confessions that I refer to sometimes, these were dogmatic doctrinal statements made by the Christian church, things that lay folks could wrap their heads around and read and understand. Some of them were in question form. And so when I refer to the 18, I forgot the number, 1689, 89, thank you. You're going to get old one day. The 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith, or the Heidelberg Confession, or the Westminster Confession of Faith, these are great Christian resources that systematize theology for us and help us to understand some things. But anyway, back then, they used this Q&A approach to teach their children by questions and answers. They taught their little kids. So as their kids grew up, they learned doctrine. We've kind of lost something in our churches, haven't we? We've lost that. And the Heidelberg Confession answers this question. What advantage is it to know that God provides and God creates? And this is the answer. 2 parts. So that we may be patient in adversity and thankful in prosperity. It goes on, and that in all things which may hereafter befall us, we place our firm trust in our faithful God and Father, that nothing shall separate us from His love, since all creatures are so in His hand that without His will they cannot so much as move. That's a great statement about the sovereignty and omnipotence of God. And so they reply, there's 2 reasons. We want to know that God created and He provides for His creation and He upholds all things. One, that might be patient in adversity. When you're a pilgrim having landed in a new land, when you're in the middle of a civil war, that you can be patient in adversity. When you're going through a physical issue or a financial issue or a relational issue, or something is upset in your life and the storms are blowing and things are happening to you, you can know the goodness of God and that He always prospers us in His way and in His timing, and it will develop a patience in our adversity. And then secondly, the second part of that answer is that we may be thankful in prosperity. They remind us to be thankful in both, patient in adversity, thankful in prosperity. Patient in adversity, thankful in prosperity. Why these 2 strong warnings? Why? Because human nature trends toward ingratitude. We just trend that way. We trend toward ingratitude. Well, I just deserve better. Well, I've worked hard. We trend that way. We also tend towards self-praise. We just trend that way. It's not a condemnation. It's just the way we humans are. We just tend to pat ourselves on the back. We tend to give ourselves high fives. We tend to tell people how good we are and how hard we've worked and how smart we are. It's just human nature. And it's a constant battle. Constant battle. Sometimes prosperity can breed contempt. There's a business owner here in Jackson, has a great and successful business here, and very, very pleasant people, he and his wife. And every time I go in his business, I do business with him. And every single time, this has been my experience, every single time, he will always call me Preacher Jack, which I don't demand titles, but it's kind of nice to hear once in a while, you know. Preacher Jack, how you doing, Preacher Jack? And I'll say, man, I'm good. How are you? He always says, I'm better than I deserve. I'm better than I deserve. And that ought to be the heartfelt cry of every single Christian. I have more than I deserve. Things are better than I deserve. God is good to me. God is good. Better than I deserve. So these are strong warnings, even during days of prosperity, because prosperity, we can bump up against ingratitude. We can bump up against self-praise. And again, it goes back sometimes to that lack of faith, lack of thankfulness just on a daily basis. of thanking the server, thanking the person that holds the door, thanking somebody that does even the smallest thing for us. We kind of get out of that habit, and it just grows and grows. And after a while, we just kind of quit thinking about thanking the provider. So prosperity can cause and breed ingratitude. Now, let me say also that ingratitude can also be found in those who don't prosper and aren't prosperous. It's found everywhere. It's found everywhere. But again, the warning of Moses, when you get there with all that God's given you, don't you think for a moment that your own hand brought it to you. It was a good, loving, compassionate, giving, generous God that gave it to you. All by his hand. Prosperity, though, can breed ingratitude. Second thing, maybe an instigator of ingratitude is our entitlement culture. The entitlement culture in which we live. There seems to always be a couple of questions here. This is what an entitled person would ask. Why should I be grateful for what I think I have a right to anyway? Why should I be grateful for what I think I have a right to anyway? Well, humans have rights. Whoa. Whoa. That's not necessarily scriptural. Just because we breathe air and take up space doesn't really, by the law of God, give us rights. Most of our rights are man-made, concocted. Not saying that they're all wrong. I have a right for you not to beat up on me. Amen? And I have the right that if you start beating on me, I will beat back. Harder, faster. Just letting you know. So yeah, there's some things like that, but at the end of the day, just the fact that I'm a human being taking up space really doesn't entitle me to very much. In fact, the Bible, I believe, would lean more to the idea is if you're a human being breathing God's air and taking up God's space, I believe it leans more toward you be productive in that space. You work in that space. You provide. You serve in that space. Rather than expect something just because I am me. So why should I be grateful for what I think I have a right to anyway? In other words, I have rights, and you ought to meet my rights, and you ought to meet my needs. And why should I feel grateful for that? Because I deserve it anyway. Wow. Another question. Why, and I've already kind of said this, why should I be grateful for the things I think I deserve? Why should I be grateful for what I think I deserve? And I know there's a lot of nuance here to these questions. I understand that. But again, how much do you deserve? What do you deserve? If we had what we deserved, we wouldn't be here this morning. If we had what we deserved, we would be in hell, condemned, and lost for eternity. That's what I deserve. So I really don't deserve that much. And again, there's nuances here and perspectives here, but you get the point. So, why should I be grateful for the things that I think you should be providing for me anyway? Well, why should I be grateful for the things I think I deserve anyhow? Because after all, I am me, and I'm all that in a bag of chips. Kind of an entitlement culture. Why should I be grateful for the things I think I'm owed? And this comes to play in our own salvation. Because listen to people. Are you going to heaven when you die? Oh, absolutely I am. Well, why do you think that? Well, I'm a good person, and good people deserve to go to heaven. Right? That's the attitude. Well, I'm a good person, and if God is fair, He lets good people into heaven. I deserve it. I've always had a problem with this phrase when somebody passes away. Now, I know, again, there's some biblical nuance here. I know. But I just don't like it. I think it paints a false, unbiblical picture in the minds of most people. When somebody says, Brother Joe died and he's gone on to his reward. I don't like that phrase because it sounds like Joe earned that. And God's going to reward him because he earned it. And there's not a soul one that earns heaven. Not one. Not one. In the words of the great black preacher Vody Baucham, be thankful for the mercy of God. The only reason you're breathing this morning is the mercy of God because His judgment should have killed you last night. We have that entitlement culture. I deserve this. I have earned this. I'm a good person that deserves to go to heaven. Surely the scales will fall in my way, and God will see that I deserve it. Or this idea, and you've heard it if you've grown up in church. Yeah, God did His work. Jesus did His work at the cross, but I've done my part too. I had a relative that said many times over during the course of our years together, I believe in grace, but I believe you got to live that Bible too. If I could live the Bible, I wouldn't need the grace. If I could live the Bible, I wouldn't need the grace. Well, if you're living the Bible, then you don't need the grace, and therefore you deserve heaven if you can do that. Amen? But you can't, and I can't, and no one can. So even in our spiritual circle, we tend to have this idea that, well, I'm not a bad person, I'm a good person, and God cuts some slack to good people because we deserve that. Totally opposed to what Scripture teaches. Yeah, Christ did His work on the cross. I'll allow that. He died for sin. I'll allow that. But I must add my 1%. I must add my 1% of faith or belief or good works. I must add something to it. Because what Jesus did wasn't enough. I have to deserve it somehow. Friend, the most glorious thing about the gospel of Jesus Christ and the grace of God is that God does for sinners what they cannot in any way, shape, form, or fashion ever do for themselves. That's the glory of the gospel. So, an entitlement culture. And we could talk about all day how entitled many people in our culture are, couldn't we? We could talk about those millennials and Gen Xers. And we could just go, but I'll tell you there's some 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds that feel entitled too. I confess. I've reached that age to where I think I've earned the right to be a little grumpy. Huh? I'm a little tongue-in-cheek here, but this has got to where I've been on this earth over six decades. I've put up with so much garbage and junk and people and stabs in the back, and haven't you? I mean, we all have. And we have put up with so much sorrow and hurt and pain, and after I think I deserve to be a little grumpy. But that's not true at all. It's not true at all. So we can talk about an entitlement culture from the young to the old, and it can breed a sense of ingratitude that I am entitled, I deserve this. I will hasten to say to you one of the most difficult things in the world to do when you are treated wrongly is to have this attitude of, hey, I don't deserve anything else but this. I don't deserve anything else but this treatment. Not that you earned it, but that's a hard thing to accept. So this idea of entitlement, I deserve. My family deserves. I deserve this. I deserve that. Something we need to struggle with. It weighs on our thanklessness. A third thing is a negative mindset. A negative mind, go to the next one. I may have gotten them out of order. I'm old, I do that. A negative mindset, we'll come back to the other one. A negative mindset. And by that, I simply mean focusing on the smaller pains and inconveniences rather than the big picture of life. Rather than the big picture of life. And I think we're all guilty. I am. Focusing on the small pains instead of the big picture. I think I shared with you last week, Melissa and I were having a conversation about just how small we were. And she said, I'm just a grain of sand on a beach. I'm nothing. I said, you're right, honey, you are nothing. No, we both agreed. Something about the older we're getting, we realize, all that's going to be left of Jack is a small headstone. Now, this planned. All that's going to be left to me is a small headstone that's going to say Jack Pickle, 1962 to whatever year I die. At Cedar Valley Cemetery in Chatsworth, Georgia, beside my dad, between my dad and my brother. That's all that's going to be left to me. That's it. What about your legacy? I'm not living to leave a legacy. What about your memory? I love you guys and you love me, but I got news for you. 2 days after I die, you're going to form a pulpit committee and start looking for another preacher. And you should. You've seen that meme that goes around. I get tickled every time I see it. Don't give everything you have to your job, because on the day of your funeral, they're going to run an ad looking for somebody to replace you. And that's true. And to see the big picture of who you are, who I am, who we really are, what we're going to leave, what we're not going to leave, and focus on the big picture a little more instead of the small pains and small inconveniences of this earthly journey. For example, the Smiths have a new car, new Cadillac sitting over there. You can tell I'm old school. I still love Cadillacs. And I'm driving this, what's a cheap car? Oh, you rich. Y'all got big cars. I know. Hugo or something. I'm driving this little bitty thing. Huh? Look what they have. Look what I don't have. And we fail to look at what God's already providing for us. We fail to see what He's already providing. Health. Most of us never mention our health unless it's bad. When was the last time you heard somebody say, when you said, how are you doing, that they said, man, I'm enjoying good health right now? When was the last time anybody said that? But you let us stump our toe. You let us get something in our eye, we got to call our prayer warriors together. How you doing? Well, you know, I stumped my toe the other day, and I tell you, I went to the doctor the next day, and tell you all the gory details that you do not want to hear. Amen? We never talk about the good health we do enjoy. And all of us, I'm sure all of us are suffering from some negative health issue this morning in some way, some more than others. But, you know, when I'm in my younger days, I never thought about or even thought to be thankful about the good, strong back I had until it went bad. You know? We never think about these old hearts that beat for decades. They beat for decades. Sometimes abused hearts. The liver that functions for decades. Kidneys that function for decades. Fingers that function for decades. Never a thankful thought about any of that, but you let the slightest sniffle come to us, and we got to tell everybody within a 12-mile radius about it. You don't like that, but you know it's the truth, don't you? We don't celebrate our good health. We love to moan about our bad health. Negative mindset. And we unduly focus sometimes, often on the smaller things, and not all health issues are small things, I understand that, to the neglect of being thankful for the health we enjoy. You just think about back over this past year and compare your physical complaints about bad health versus praise for good health. And where do you land? A negative mindset breeds ingratitude. With this question, well, why did this happen to me? Better question, why not you? Why not you? Why not me? Well, I just don't understand why this happened to me. Why not me? Why not you? Why not? And then finally, a to whom question. Initiator of ingratitude is the to whom question. When we say thank you, to whom are we saying it? To whom are we grateful? If you follow the thread of thanksgiving, where does it ultimately lead? Oh, I'm grateful. Okay, to whom? It has to ultimately lead back to a generous benefactor we know as God. Now, unbelievers will say, oh, I'm great. This Thanksgiving season, many unbelievers, atheists, will gather around a Thanksgiving table and say, I'm thankful. To whom? To whom are you thankful? Well, I'm thankful. To whom? But all thanksgiving leads ultimately back to God, whether you want to admit it or not. Every good gift comes down from the Father of lights. God himself, for the atheist and for the believer. That's what the Bible talks about. In Scripture, there are two perspectives of this grace. There's what is called common grace in Scripture. And that's a common grace that is given to every single one of God's creation. That simply means that God provides certain things for all of his creation, whether or not that person believes in him or not, or worships him or not. God provides common grace. Beautiful mountains, a beautiful ocean, trips, relationships, good things in life that person enjoys. Common grace that God provides for all his creatures and for which they should be thankful. But then there is special grace that is not given to everyone. It is only given to those of us who are believers, and that grace begins with the gift of salvation in and through and by his Son, Jesus Christ. Special grace. But as the creatures of the Creator, He gives a common grace to everyone, and it rains on the just and the unjust. And the unjust enjoy the beauty of this world and the beauty of relationships and everything else, as does a believer. God gives that to him. In fact, in Acts chapter 14, verses 8 through 18, Paul and Barnabas are at a place called Lystra, which was a place where Gentiles live, not Jews, Gentiles. And they're preaching there to these Gentiles. And what had happened, they had healed, God through them had healed a crippled man. A crippled man had been healed at the hands of Paul and Barnabas. And these pagan Gentiles, as people are prone to do, kind of put Paul and Barnabas up on a pedestal, kind of elevated them a little bit, kind of called them gods. Wow, the gods have come to Lystra. Wasn't the gods. Paul and Barnabas were not gods. They were two men whom God were using, but they weren't gods. And man, Paul had to jump in and stop this. Jump in and stop it. They were calling them gods. In fact, they called Paul Hermes from Greek mythology. They called him the god Hermes. They called Barnabas Zeus from Greek mythology. They'd given them names. Here's Hermes and Zeus right here. The gods of mythology right here, healing people among us. Let us worship them. And Paul in verse 17 jumped on that and he said, God did not leave himself without a witness, for he did good by giving you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. Now it goes on, but part of his rebuttal to this is the fact he's telling these Gentiles who were not in the Jewish covenant with God, who were far from God, who were pagans. He was pointing out the fact, what I'm pointing out now, that even though they were from Lystra, even though they were Gentiles, even though they were pagans from God, that God had been good to them. That the God who created them, that they did not worship, but he still gave them rains and fruitful seasons because he is a kind, beneficent, gracious God that gives common gifts, common grace to all of his creatures. And so therefore, all thanksgiving goes back to him ultimately. James 1:17, I've already quoted this. Every good and perfect gift is from above, from the Father. God cares for his creation. And in so doing that, unbelievers benefit from it. No unbeliever can stand before God and say, what have you ever done for me? No unbeliever can stand before God and say, what have you ever done for me? The Creator has provided for the creation. Common grace. Then certainly for us believers, we know to whom our thanksgiving goes. God provides common grace for us as well, but he also provides salvific grace. Salvation grace, theological grace, doctrinal grace. He has given us the gift of his beloved Son in salvation, who has regenerated us, washed us, cleansed us, adopted us into the family of God, redeemed us, justified us, sanctified us, taken away all of our sin, has lifted us out of a pit, set our feet on the rock, put a song in our heart, established our goings. He has moved us from death to life, from blindness to sight. He has done all these things through the glorious gospel of his Son, and we are grateful. Special grace, saving grace, as well as common grace. And all this gratitude goes back to God, whether or not one realizes it. And so I understand, because I'm the same way. You say, yeah, Jack, I know. This is an old preacher story. Just popped in my head. A new preacher at a country church was out visiting some of his flock. One was a farmer. The farmer had a beautiful field, tilled soil and crops growing. It was almost harvest time. It was abundant and growing. And the preacher said, you know, God's sure giving you a nice harvest there. Nice field, beautiful. He said, well, you know, preacher, when I bought that field, it was just dirt and rocks. When God owned it, He didn't do a lot with it. You should have seen it when God had it. So you get the point. Wrong point, but you got it. And just like some of us, God, Jack, I know God's gracious. I know God's blessed me, but you know, I've done some work. I'm pretty smart. I figured things out. I figured things out. I learned a skill. I learned a trade and all that. And I understand that. I get it. But seriously, it was only by the sovereign design of God that you ever came into this world to begin with. You're here only because of the sovereign decision of God. And only through the sovereign decision of God did He put into you the ability for gifts and talents and thinking and the ability to do things and skills to do things and to accomplish things and to produce things or serve in a certain area. All that came from God. So at the end of the day, you and I can't take a whole lot of credit. Every good gift comes from the Father. Every good gift comes from the Father. That doesn't deny your hard work. It doesn't deny your capabilities or anything. But just understanding, take one step back and understand where your ability to work hard and your strength to work hard and your wherewithal to work hard and your ability to think and to have skills and develop talents, all that came from a God that blessed you with it and gave it to you. And all our thanksgiving goes back to Him. So, this Thanksgiving season, let us know to whom our praise goes. Let's not let a negative mindset rob us of our gratitude. Let's not let an entitlement culture cheat us out of the thanksgiving that we owe our great God. Let's not let even our prosperity keep us from saying thank you to the one who deserves the gratitude to begin with. And as the psalmist said here in this text, how great are your works? How great are your works? And in light of that, the psalmist reminds us it's good to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises to our God, the Most High. Let's pray together. Father, our thankfulness never reaches the place that it should for each of us. We're mortal human beings, flawed in every way, so none of our worship is ever perfect, none of our thanksgiving is ever perfect. But help us be conscious that every good and perfect gift comes down from you, that it is you who have caused our hands to prosper. It is you that has given us success. It is you that has given us the power, the intelligence, the skills, the talents. Every gift comes from you. And so this Thanksgiving season and throughout the rest of this season and throughout next year, help us to be mindful of our gratitude toward you, daily thanksgiving, and to resound with the psalmist when we say, how great are your works. Therefore, we will give praise to the name of our God Most High. Thank you for all you have done and continue to do and will do for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Stand with us, please. This is one of our favorites.
Are lifted high, our hearts are bowing in reverence. surrounded by the glory of your presence, with every creature, every tongue, we're lifting our hearts to the glorious one. Glorious one, light of the world, you outshine the sun, King of all kings, eternity sings, glorious one. God of infinite worth, with hands that carved out the ocean, you hold the universe, and still you run to the broken, with every heart that's been set free, we're lifting our song to our glorious King. Glorious one, light of the world, you outshine the sun, King of all kings, eternity sings, glorious one. There is none more beautiful. 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 Glorious one, light of the world, you outshine the sun, King of all kings, eternity sings, glorious one, light of the world, you outshine the sun, King of all kings, eternity sings, glorious one, glorious one, glorious one, glorious
In the simple words of the Apostle Paul in Ephesians, be ye thankful. And all the church said, amen. Have a great day.